Hello everybody, it's Pete from MyJuryBench.com. I had a friend ask me if I would make him a coin bezel to wear as a pendant, and we came up with a cool little design to use a sea turtle as the bezel frame for his 21mm Spanish coin. So he has an antique Spanish coin that we're going to make into a simple pendant design. We're trying this out for size. We don't know if we're actually going to have it cast, but I'm going to actually make this, show you and walk you through step by step how we did it, and then 3D print it. Let's get started. Okay guys, so I've got my standard Blender screen up here. What I'm going to do is come over to the Tools panel. I'm going to turn on my screencast key so you can follow along. Okay, so let's get started. What I need to do now is create an object that we can use to represent the quarter that we're going to use for this. And again, I'm just using a quarter. The quarter is about 24mm in diameter, so I'm going to add in a new cylinder. So Shift A, I'm going to come over to Mesh, then down to Cylinder, and I'm going to change the vertices count to 80 just to give it some more detail. We know that our quarter being 24mm and about 1.7mm thick, so we're going to come over to the dimensions. And under dimensions, I'm going to type 24 by 24 and then 1.7mm thick. So this would represent approximately the size of our quarter. Okay, so that's done. It's not a perfect thing. It's just a little disc right now, but we're going to use that to represent the quarter. I'll also be using this as a cutout when I make the frame. Now, in addition, I have to go and find myself a 3D model of a turtle because I don't feel like sculpting a turtle, and it's very difficult for me to sculpt. I'm not a perfect artist. So what I did was I went online, I did a Google search for turtles, 3D turtles. I found one that was for free, and you can download it. It's an OBJ file if you want to follow along with me, or you can go ahead and try anything on your own. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to type in, or I'm going to change the name of the cylinder to say quarter. Okay, so I got that done. I'm going to go and save my file. File, save as, and I'm going to save this in the turtle project, and we're just going to call this coin bezel 1. So I'm going to save that, and now when I save my project, it'll just keep saving and overwriting that. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is figure out what to do and get the turtle in here. Again, I've downloaded a 3D model of a turtle, so I'm going to select this coin. I'm going to hide it so that it's hidden. And I am going to go to File, Import, and remember I said it was an OBJ file or a wavefront file, so I'm going to come over and import that wavefront. And here is our turtle object, so I'm going to import that. And there's the turtle. Now it's a little off kilter, it's not rotated correctly, so I'm going to rotate this RX -90. And then I'm going to do a Control-A to align the rotation and scale, or apply the rotation and scale. So there is our turtle. Now let's unhide our quarter. So I'm going to select this little eyeball here. And if we go into invisible mode, we can see there is our quarter stuck in the middle here. And what I want to do is kind of size down this turtle a little bit. So I'm going to size him down to approximately there. We've got some changes to make to this, so don't worry about it yet. And there's our turtle head. So I'm going to come over and turn off invisible so we can see the turtle. And this turtle did come in with some texture, so if I come over to Materials View, you can see it does have a texture on it. We don't necessarily need that for 3D modeling because we are going to create a piece of jewelry that we're going to cast. So the texture is kind of an irrelevant thing. So I'll come over back here to Solid Shading, and I am going to look at this from the side view, and I'm just going to bring this down to about here. That looks good. I'm going to hit Set Origin to Center of Volume, and I'm going to press Control-S, and let's see, Selection to Cursor. Okay, so if I look back down on this, you can still see there's our turtle and there's our coin. Let's make that turtle just a little bit bigger, right about there. Okay, so now I have to figure out how to make a bezel out of this 3D model of a turtle. Now it's not that difficult, and really and truly the only thing I'm going to need is one front fin and one back fin and the whole head. So how do I do that? How do I make a cutout of this? It's very simple. So let's take our coin. We're going to hide that because we don't need that right now. With my 3D model of the turtle selected, what I want to do is go into Edit Mode, select Edit Mode, and you can see this model comes in with a lot of vertices. I'm going to come in from the top so that we're looking at it from the top down. And now what I want to do is basically just select only the faces that I'm going to be working with. So I'm going to hit A twice, AA, and that deselects all faces. I'm going to come over to my selection mode up here, and we're going to select face selection, or you can press the number 3 key on your keypad or keyboard, not your keypad. And now I can hit the C button to do select, and you can see it gives me a nice little circle there, and I can use the mouse button to increase and decrease the size of that influential circle. I'm going to leave it about there, and now I'm going to make sure that I'm on invisible mode, which we are, which means that I can see through the model, and I can select all the faces both above and below the middle of the fin here. And I'm just going to select all of these, just like so. And now if I hit the right mouse button, it deselects our selection tool, and you can see I've got that selected pretty much like that. That's pretty good. So what do I want to do with this now? Well, we're going to use a function called separate, and that's the P key on your keypad or keyboard. So hit the P key, and then you can see it says separate by selection. So I'm going to hit that. Okay, so now I have a new model here. It leaves my old one in edit mode. It makes a solid model of the fin that we cut off. And if I go into object mode, you can see I have the fin and the original turtle. Now, if I move this fin out of the way, you can see it's not attached to the turtle anymore. Okay, so I'm going to select this, and we're going to come over, we're going to change the name of this, and we're going to call this, let's see, right front fin. Okay, so I've got that done. Going to move back in the top view by pressing the 7 key on my keypad, or you can come over to the tilde key on your keyboard and select top view. Okay, with that done, we're going to select our turtle one more time. We're also going to make sure that we are in invisible mode, or we can see through that. And let's just see, that's called X-ray mode. I apologize. I'm going to go back into edit mode by pressing the tab key. Again, we're going to press the C key on the keyboard. I'm going to draw that circle up just a little bit. And now what I want to do is just kind of grab as much of this lower fin as possible. And that looks pretty good. I don't need all of that, but we'll take care of that in a little bit. I'm going to right click to deselect my selection tool, and we'll just double check that we've got both the bottom and the top selected. And again, we're going to hit the P key, and we are going to separate by selection. So now I've got the back right fin. So we'll come over here, we'll select that, go back into object mode, select this back right fin, and we will call this back rear fin. Okay, now we've got that done. And one more thing I have to do is grab the head. So let's go back and select our turtle model. Again, we'll go in the top view, and I'm going to zoom into the head here, press tab to go into edit mode. And now what I want to do is select all of the head. Again, we're going to press the C key on the keyboard, which gives us our influential circle. And we are going to select the model as much as possible here, just like so. And I'm trying to get into those corners just like that, and make sure that you have everything selected. And again, I'm going to right click to turn that off, and we're going to rotate around just to make sure that we have everything selected, which we do. And now I will press the P key one more time. We'll do a separate by selection, and now the turtle's head is separated from the body of the turtle, so we can see what we can do. We can move that away, and it's good to go. Now let's just change the name of this, and we're going to call this turtle head. Okay, let's go and save our project. Save. Okay, with that done, I'm going to get rid of the, I can get rid of the rest of the turtle body, so we'll select it, press the X key, and then delete it. That leaves us with the head, the upper and lower fins on the right side. Now, I'm going to show you what we're going to do with those later, but don't worry about it for now. Okay, so let's kind of group these together. Actually, I'm going to make this, I'm going to leave it just like that. I'm going to select these. I'm going to press H to hide them. And let's go back to our quarter. Let's select our quarter here. I'm going to turn that back on so that we can see our quarter. Okay, with our quarter selected, now what I have to do is make the bezel for this. And this is going to be a yellow gold bezel. So I'm going to actually add in another cylinder. We're going to do this with a couple cylinders and some booleans. I'm going to hit Shift A. Now, we've already done a cylinder once, so our properties are going to remain the same. So I'm going to add in a new cylinder, and you can see we still have 80 vertices here. What I want to do is I want to size this up, and I'm going to do that by going into top view, size, Shift Z, so that I'm only sizing along the X and Y axis, and I'm going to make that slightly bigger than our coin, about like so. Okay, if we look at this from the side view, you can see it's a little bit bigger than our coin is, which is fine. We want this to be a little larger. And actually, I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger on the z-axis. You see it's 2 millimeters here. Let's make that 2.5 millimeters. Maybe let's do 2.7. 2.7 millimeters since we have a 1.7 millimeter coin. Okay, that's good. Now I want to take our quarter and I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate that, press Enter, and now you can see we have quarter.001, which is a duplication quarter, and this is what I'm going to use to make the cutout. So what I want to do now is I want to size this down just a little bit. So I'm going to hit S, and then I'm going to bring it in so that it's about 23 millimeters, maybe 20, let's make it 22.5 millimeters. Okay, now I'm going to just size this up on the Z-axis, SZ, and I'm going to size it up so that it protrudes from our gold bezel. So here's our gold bezel, and I'll just change the name here. We'll call this gold bezel. And I have this cutout that I'm going to use, quarter.001, and we're going to separate this, or take this portion out of our coin bezel. Okay, so with the cutout selected, or the quarter.001 selected, hold the Shift key down, select the gold bezel, and then press Control, Shift, and minus on your keypad, and that will do a Boolean cutout. It leaves our coin there, and you know what? I'm going to actually go into shaded mode. I'm going to change this coin to some kind of a metal material. So rather than bore you with my material adding to the models, I'm just going to put a silver material onto the coin and a gold material onto the bezel. I can show you how I do that. If you have any questions about that, leave them in the comments section below. What's there? Okay, so this is a representation of our quarter, and that looks good so far. Let's see here. I'm going to bring up my bezel just ever so slightly, about like so. And if I look at this from the front view and we turn on X-ray mode, and if we look at this in shaded view, you can see it. And if I just turn on wireframe mode, we can look at the wireframe representation of this. And what I want to do now is I want to make another copy of our coin. So I'm going to hit Shift D and then press Enter. And you can see I've got another quarter.001. And what I want to do now is I want to make this a little taller on the Z-axis. So hit Shift or S and then Z, and I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger, just like so. I'm going to bring this down ever so slightly to about here, and then go into solid mode so that we can see both of that. So I have this new representation here. I've got it selected. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select my gold bezel. And again, I'm going to do a Boolean difference. So you can go over to your Boolean tools wherever they may be. I've got mine stuck here, so you can do a Boolean difference, and that's going to cut out the bottom of our bezel. So if we look at this from a shaded perspective, we've got our coin here, we've got our bezel. We hide our coin or move our coin. You can see I've got a nice little rim on the inside of our bezel, which can support the top side of a coin. Okay. So far, so good. I've got that done. Now I need to figure out how to add the fins. But before I do that, I want to give this bezel a little bit of kind of soft edges. So what I want to do now is just go into edit mode with that selected. And I am going to use the edge select, not the vertices of the face, but the edge select, which is right here. You can select it also by pressing the 2 key on your keyboard. I'm going to hold the Shift key down. I'm going to select one of the edges over here. Let's turn off the X-ray mode. So I'm going to select this edge here, hold the Shift key, or hold the Alt key down rather, and you can see it selects this entire section of edges all the way around half of the coin. I'm going to hold the Shift key and the Alt key together and then press the other side, and now you can see I've got that selected all the way around the entire coin. Go back into object mode, press Control A, and let's apply the rotation and scale for our coin bezel. Now let's go back into edit mode. You can see we still have our complete edge selected around the perimeter of the upper side of our coin bezel. With that done, I'm going to press Control B, and then I'm just going to apply a little bit of a bevel to that, just about like so. I want that to be kind of a sharper edge, so I'm only going to apply that once. And then I'm going to do the same on the inside of our coin bezel. So I'm going to hit the Alt key, I'm going to select the inside edge, and you can see it's selected just about half of that, or actually 3/4 of it. Hold the Shift key and the Alt key together and select the unselected edge on the inside. So here you can see I've got it all selected around all the way. Press Control B, and then I'm going to bring this out, and I'm going to actually round this off so that it gives us a nice smooth curve on the inside of our coin bezel. That's just for looks. So I've got this really nice flat 45-degree angle on the outside perimeter, but I do have a rounded on the inside perimeter of the upper side of our bezel. So far, so good. Now, what do I need to do from here? I need to add in a couple little prongs that are going to hold in our coin, because typically with a coin bezel, there's two ways to do it. You can buy them prefabricated with like a little screw at the bottom, so you can put the coin in and tighten it down. In this case, we do have some support on the inside of our coin bezel. So if I bring this coin down, you can see we still have this frame here, which is going to support the inside of our coin. And I'm just going to move this back. Okay, and on the bottom, I need a way to hold this so I can insert the coin and then just bend over some prongs. Now, it's not a very difficult thing, and you can do it with either 3 or 4 prongs. I'm actually going to do this with 4 prongs. To do that, I'm actually going to make some prongs that are about 0.6 of a millimeter, maybe 0.7 of a millimeter in diameter. To do this, I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to come over to Mesh, and I'm going to add in a cylinder. And now I'm going to come over to my item properties for my cylinder, and here's our cylinder. We'll just bring that right, oops, Control Z. Where is our cylinder? There it is. I'm going to bring that up. And you can see it's 2 millimeters, so I'm going to make that 0.7 by 0.7. And you know, when we're going to 3D print this, it's going to shrink a little bit, so let's make this 0.8, oops, make this 0.85 by 0.85. And we're going to leave this at approximately 3 millimeters long, and that's okay. We can go back and finish that. Now I've got that selected, and I'm going to come over to top view. And now what I want to do is I want to take these prongs and I want to actually apply them to the to 4 sides of our bezel. To do this is very easy. What we're going to do is we're going to apply a mirror modifier to our prong. So let's come over here and we're going to just change this to lower prongs. Okay, so I've got that selected. I'm going to come over to my modifiers tab, which is the little wrench here on the right side of our blender tree. And we're going to come over to add modifier, and we are going to add any mirror modifier. By default, it adds the X. We're also going to add the Y. Now, you'd think that all I got to do now is just drag this over and it'll mirror it automatically. And you can see it doesn't do crap. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that back. We're going to go into edit mode. We're going to hit the A key to make sure that everything's selected. And once everything's selected, if I grab the X arrow to move it along the X-axis, you can see it's moving everything right to the right side, and that's perfect. And now what I want to do is I want to bring this up to about here. Looks good so far. And now, why is that? Because I really messed up here. I went too far. These prongs are going to be located at about the 45-degree mark, and there is a quick way to do that. However, an even quicker way is just to grab that one right there, press the G key, and then just move it where you want it to about here. That looks good. And I'm going to come in from the side view, still in edit mode, and I'm going to bring this down so that my prongs are below the bezel. And if I look at this, you can see my prongs are located perfectly along the frame of the lower side of our bezel. We go back into object mode, press the tab key, and now that that's done, I can hit apply all. So we're going to apply the mirror modifier that we just created and then moved our prongs around. So I'm going to hit apply all. If the first item selected will pick up automatically the material of the second item that you select when you do a Boolean union. So if I select the prongs, hold the shift key down, select the gold bezel, and now I do a Boolean union, you can see my prongs now changed to gold. And that's kind of what you want. Or you could just go back and change the material if it's easier for you. And if you don't really care about the material, don't even worry about it. For this particular purpose, I'm doing this so that I can show my customer, or my friend at this point, what he actually wants in the context of what it's going to look like visually when I do a rendering. Okay, so I've got the coin bezel done. Let's go ahead and save this. We're going to save as, and I'm going to change this to coin bezel, and we are going to make this 2 so that we know we have a new version of our coin bezel. It is completely all stuck together, and our coin is still separated. If we look at this in rendered view, you can see it doesn't look too bad. We don't have any texture on the coin, so you just have to use your imagination. Okay, so now I have to go back and figure out how do I get the turtle head and the turtle fins onto this particular piece. It's not that difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back over to the turtle head. So here's the turtle head. I'm going to unhide the head. There it is. There's our beautiful turtle head. And one thing about this, if we look at this from the side view, you can see when I zoom in, the turtle head over here is rather high, and it's rather cut out poorly. So what I want to do is I want to kind of redo the turtle head in some ways so that it kind of blends in with the model of our coin bezel. To do that, I'm going to take this, I'm actually going to add in a new cylinder. So I'm going to hit Shift A, going to add in a mesh and a cylinder. You can still see we still have the 80 vertices, which is fine. I'm going to size this up, S, and I'm going to drag this over so that it encompasses part of the turtle's head to about like that. Okay, so now what I'm looking for is to make sure that all the uneven jagged edges of our turtle head that we cut off are gone, and they are. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to use this for a cutout. I'm going to select that cylinder, hit the Shift key down, select the turtle head, and then I'm going to do a Boolean difference. Okay, so now that did give me a turtle head that is now much more conformed to the dimensions of the outer perimeter of our gold bezel. So you can see if I hit the G key and I move this in, you can see it kind of conforms to that. Now, one problem we do have is it's still very high. So how do we get around that? Okay, so we get around that by going into edit mode with our turtle head selected. And you can see we have these faces here. And what I want to do is size those down along the Z axis. So if I just do that, if I hit S and then Z, you can see, oops, well, what the heck is going on here? We're only adjusting that one area. Okay, so let's cancel that by pressing the right mouse button. Let's come over to proportional editing. So with proportional editing turned on, now if I hit S and then Z, you can see now I have an influential circle where I can actually go and make this circle a little bit bigger and kind of adjust the height of our turtle head ever so slightly to almost fit in there. So if I look at this from the side view with those faces selected, and if you don't have those faces selected, you can go ahead and just select them one at a time using the Shift key. So I can come over here and hit the face select tool. I can select this face, hold the Shift key down, and just select each of these faces in case you missed it, just like so. Okay, and now I want to look at this from the side view. So here's our side view. Make sure that proportional editing is turned on. Hit S and Z, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to pull that back in to make sure that it fits approximately the size of our turtle head. And I'm just going to adjust the scale of the influence of proportional editing so that it more represents that turtle head, just about like that. Okay, now I'm going to go back into object mode. There we go. Take this turtle head and I'm going to move him in so that he attaches to the bezel, just about like so. Perfect. So our turtle head is now attached to the coin bezel. We can also bring this up a little bit if you don't like that little line at the bottom. So I think I'll do that so that we get that weird line at the bottom. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now the head's where we want it. It's not quite attached yet, but don't worry about that. Let's go to our front fin. So right front fin, let's unhide that. There's our right front fin. We basically have to do the same thing to the right front fin that we did to the head. We're going to create a new cylinder, Shift A, add mesh, come down to cylinder. Again, we're going to size this up, and I want to make sure that it's just covering the right fin of our model, which it looks like it is. I don't have any open holes here, so that looks pretty good. With the circle or cylinder selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key down, select my fin with the Shift key so that the orange one's going to be used as a cutout and the yellow one's going to be what's left behind. Again, we're going to do a Boolean difference. Okay. If I take my fin, we move it out, you can see there's the fin, and it looks like we're going to have to shade flat. There we go. Do I have any jagged edges? I do. So that doesn't look good. Let's Control Z that. Okay. So I've got my cylinder, and I'm just going to make my cylinder just a little bit bigger. S. We're going to make that just a little bit bigger. Oh, like that. And let's take this, make sure that this is shaded flat. I don't want to... Yep, that's good. I'm going to select my cutout or this new cylinder, Shift select the fin, and then I'm going to do a Boolean difference, just like so. Okay, so now I've got this fin. Let's bring this fin up. We look at our fin. We've got this nice cutout. If we go into edit mode, we've got the same situation here with those faces selected. And I'm going to just cancel that and bring that back down. We'll go into edit mode. Now we can still have those faces selected. Let's look at this from the side view. I really want to turn this or rotate this whole object. I really do, because I don't like the way that's kind of flipping down. We want this to lay on the chest, kind of flat. So let's go back into object mode. Let's go back into edit mode. Let's hit all. Okay, I'm going to rotate this RY. Just kind of rotate that around just like so. If we look at this from the side view, that gives us a much better perspective. If I bring that over and we look at that, yeah, I think that's a whole lot better. Let's go back into object mode. With that selected in object mode, I'm going to do Control A, and I'm going to apply the rotation and scale. Okay, good. So far, so good. Now, if your selection or your 3D arrows are way over here, they're not quite attached to the fin, don't worry about that. We're going to fix that in a second. We're going to make this area of the fin just slightly thinner so that it conforms better to our model. So, go back into edit mode. I'm going to come over here and just hit the face select tool over here. I'm going to select this particular face, hold the shift key down, and then shift select the other faces on the front of that fin. Again, we want to make sure that we're in proportional editing mode. Come into side view, maybe 3, so we're looking at it from the front. And then I'm going to hit SZ, and I'm going to size that down so that it's more like so. And I'm going to rotate that around just so we can see it. And you can see here, one of the issues I have is that I have this angle cut from when we rotated the fin. So now that we're not completely vertical, or we're not completely vertical on the faces. To fix that, I'm going to go into local mode. Or how about normal mode? There we go, normal mode. And you can see now that the x-axis is tilted quite a bit over to the right. So we're going to hit RX in normal mode, and we're going to turn off proportional editing, RX, and I'm just going to kind of flip this over just a little bit, just like that. It's going to give you some jagged edges, and I'm just going to kind of drag that out just ever so slightly. RX, and I'm just trying to RX, there we go. And that gives me kind of a flat surface to attach to our bezel. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I've got that front fin done. Again, it's not quite pushed up against our bezel, but don't worry about it. We're going to deal with that just a minute. Now that that's done, let's go work on the back fin. So we've got to do pretty much the same thing on the back fin. So I hate to bother you or bore you with this, but we're going to do it anyway. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to select this, and I am going to set the origin to the center of the mass. And then I'm going to hit RZ. And I'm going to rotate this just around like that. I'm going to go to 7 view so we can see it. And I'm going to kind of just move this around to kind of where I want it. That looks good. Let's zoom in a little bit better so we can see. I'm going to hit RZ. And I really want that to be about like this. And over here, I'm going to go back into global mode here so that we're in the world perspective. That looks good to me so far. This bottom fin is going to be a little small when we cut it, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Okay, I've got that bottom fin selected. Let's come back to the side view. You can see we're a little lower. Let's bring that up. All right, like that. And I probably could merge it in there, but I want a nice circular cut through the part of the lower or the rear fin. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hit Shift A, add in a new cylinder. And I'm going to size that up. And I'm going to go into top view so that we can see this from the top view. Again, that's 7 on the keypad or the tilde key. You hit the tilde key, you can go into top view. Okay, and we're going to continue to size up our cutout so that it encompasses that rear fin. So what I'm looking for is just to make sure that I have no erroneous faces that aren't being cut off by that cylinder. And it looks like we're going to do a nice clean cut. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to select our cylinder and we're going to use that as a cutout to cut out the back fin. I'm going to select our fin with the shift select so that we have both of those selected, and then again do a Boolean difference. Okay, that gives me our fin kind of where I want it. Okay, let's move it over here. Okay, so now that's about where I want it. Let's take this upper fin and let's kind of just do the same thing. Let's put set origin to center of mass. And then I'm just going to kind of move that into here. And I'm actually going to rotate this RZ. I want to rotate that along the Z-axis and kind of just move it over to about like so. Okay, I'm kind of liking the way that looks, except we need to duplicate this and this on the opposite side. So how do we do that? This is how we do it. Now, you can actually just do a mirror modifier, and I'll do it the vanilla blender way so that you can see how to do it with the vanilla blender way, and then we're going to do it a different way. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to hit, with the upper fin selected, I'm going to hit Shift S, and I'm going to hit Selection to Cursor. That puts it in the center of the screen. So if we look at this from the top-down view, we have the upper fin located perfectly in the center of our world space. I'm going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to come over to the Modifiers tab. We're going to add in a mirror modifier, just like so. And we want to modify this along the y-axis, so not the x-axis. And then I can just kind of move that around. You can see it's kind of screwing around here. We need to Control-Z that, or Control-Z or Command-Z. Go in edit mode, select all, and now I can take that and put that right where I want it, kind of like so. And we're off. Oh boy, we're off. Why is our model off? Okay, so every once in a while I screw up. So let's just Command-Z or Control-Z to get out of this and go back to where we were. Okay guys, so I've got this up, this forward fin and the rear fin about where I want it. We know the head is where I want it. So how do we get everything to work perfectly? So if we select this, and remember I set the original origin to center of mass so that I could rotate this along its own X and Y axis. But when you're going to mirror something to one side or the other, we want to do a couple of things. I am actually going to select this upper fin, press Control-A, and apply the rotation and scale. Okay, I'm going to do that with the back fin also. Again, Control-A, apply rotation and scale. With our upper fin selected, what I want to do now is to mirror this on the opposite side. So the quick and dirty way of doing this is to take its origin and set the origin to the 3D cursor, which is the center of our world space. So I'm going to right click on that, come over to Set Origin, and then Origin to 3D Cursor. Now you can see it puts back the control points, the red and green arrow, to the center of our world space. So that now if I rotate this RZ, you can see it rotates around the center of the world. Okay, now I want to mirror this. Again, the mirror modifier modifies one item from the center point or the orientation or the mirror modifier works like this. From the origin point that you set, whether it's the center of mass, center of volume, center of geometry, center of 3D cursor, that's the point at which it's going to mirror something on. So with this upper fin selected, and we have our origin set to the 3D cursor or the center of world space, and we've applied the rotation and scale, we can come over to our add modifier, add in a mirror modifier. Again, it's going to apply it along the x-axis by default. We're going to do it on the y, and now we have a perfectly symmetrized upper fin on the opposite side. I'm going to apply that because we don't need to do anything else with that. Now we've already applied the rotation and scale of our lower fin. We want to set the origin to the 3D cursor. Again, what we're going to do is apply the mirror modifier using the Modifiers tab, and again select the Y and not the X, and you can see that the dorsal fin or the back fin of the turtle is now set to the proper placement on the opposite side from where it started. We'll apply that, and there is our turtle bezel just about ready to be joined together. Before we do that though, I want to use the turtle's head as a point at which the chain flows through it. So if I select the head, I'm going to just press Control-A, apply rotation and scale. I'm going to look at this from the side view. We're going to zoom into the head. There it is, a nice big turtle head. Let's come over to Items tab here, and you can see it is 5 millimeters high on the Z-axis. So 5 millimeters approximately here along this axis. I want to make that just a little bit bigger, so I'm going to scale this up, SZ, along the Z-axis, and I'm going to make this a little bit higher, just about like so. And now you can see I've got approximately 5.6 millimeters. That doesn't look too bad. If I come over here and we come back to the bottom, We're still protruding a little bit. I think what I'll do is I'll just move this up a little bit, just like so. Okay, and now I want to make a hole for the chain. Now there's two ways I can accomplish it. I could use a cutter tool, or I could use a cutout, which I'm going to do. And to do a cutout, we're going to basically add in a cylinder. So the chain that I want to use for this is going to be approximately 2 millimeters or 2.5 millimeters thick. So I want to make a cutout that's going to be approximately 3 millimeters. So we're going to add in a cylinder, Shift A, add in a mesh cylinder. I am going to come over here to the dimensions, and I'm going to make the X and Y axis 3 millimeters each. And then along the Z, we're going to make that 10 millimeters. Okay, so I've got this 10 millimeter long cutout that we're going to use as a cutter. I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to press Control R, and I'm going to add in 50 loop cuts just because I can. And press Tab, go back into object mode. I'm going to rotate this RX90 so that it's flat, and I'm going to move this over to the turtle's head, just about like so. And what I'm shooting for is to get this hole that I can make in the turtle's head so that the chain can go through it. Now, I can do it as a straight hole. If we look at this from the top down, where are we going here? We look at the turtle from the top down, you can see I've got this hole cutout that I'm going to use. Remember, this is my cutout, and I'm putting it through the turtle's head, and it's going to go straight through. Now, that's not typically a problem, but what I would prefer to do is kind of curve this cutter so that it gives more of an angle so the turtle's head doesn't kind of saw blade against the side of the turtle's head. To do that, again, we're going to go into top-down view. I'm going to do a quick little step or a quick little add-on here. Shift A, we're going to add in a curve and a circle curve. Okay, let's move this over to here. Let's size that up about like so. I think that looks pretty good. And now what I want to do is select this, press Control A, and we're going to apply the rotation and scale to our cutter. And I'm going to apply a modifier to this cutter. So to do that, we come over to our modifiers tab, and we're going to apply a curve modifier. So I'm going to select that. And now I want it to curve along this particular curve, which is Bezier circle. So I'm going to come over to the curve object, and I'm going to select Bezier Curve. And you can see what it does here. It kind of screws us all up. Don't worry about that. You can come over to change that if you want. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Again, let's just select that. Oops. Bezier Curve. If it kind of gives you a little bit of deformation here, you can just rotate this. So if I select that and I hit RX90, RZ90, RZ90, and why is it doing that? RZ90, and RX90, RZ90, there we go. Okay, so once you get that all squared away, I can take my center point here, or origin point, and I can move it by grabbing the arrow just about like so. And that's kind of what I'm shooting for. And just to make sure, I'm going to look at this from the side view. And it looks like I kind of want to move that over. So I am going to just kind of hold Shift key down, select the bezel, and kind of move this over just like so. That looks good. It's giving me enough gold on both sides of the head. And just for grins and giggles, SZ, I'm going to make the turtle's head just a little bit higher. That looks good. Okay. Now that that's done, I'm going to select this cutout. I'm going to apply. We can then get rid of the curve. We'll get rid of that. And now I can select this cutter that I'm going to use for the hole through the head of the turtle. Hold Shift key down and Shift select the turtle's head. And then go and do a Boolean difference. And now you can see we've got this perfect cutter right through the side of the head of the turtle, which is perfect to make the head of the turtle now the bail for our chain to hold the pendant. And you can see it's not quite attached to the frame of the bezel. So if I want to, I can just kind of take that, move this in just a little bit, just like so. And I'm going to move it down just a little bit. There we go. Our turtle's now attached to that. With the turtle's head selected, hold the shift key down, select the bezel, and then Boolean union. That attaches the turtle's head to the frame of the bezel. We're going to do that for the two fins again. And then the back fins. That is our coin bezel. And there you have it. Guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel, as it does help my channel grow, and I do appreciate it. All of those who continue to watch me on my YouTube channel, I do appreciate it. Don't forget to check out myjewelrybench.com and blundergems.com. And if you have any interest in having something like this made, please let me know. I can always find a way to put this model up online so that you can get it. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a great day.